Good morning. Welcome to the Blue Fiber Tree. I'm Jeannine.
And I'm Kris, and I can't stop laughing this morning. It has been a total crazy cluster morning. I can't say the word that I really want to say because it's inappropriate for young ears. We're trying to get it together, folks. And so today's video, we're actually going to do more of a coffee and chat where we're going to answer some more common questions that people ask about different fiber-related activities.
Yeah.
So before we do that, we're going to let Jeannine do the calendar.
Okay, October. Whoa, October. Okay, so we're going to do this quickly. October 13th, we have 2 macrame classes that day. From 10 to 2, we have the Advanced Beginner Bowl. And then from 5 to 8, we have the Wreath ornaments that we're going to be doing.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, those are 2 nice and easy things. I haven't got to do the
wreaths yet.
No, that's the first wreath.
We did the angels, and that was a lot of fun.
It was.
That was really successful. Yep. I love doing the angels.
So, and then on the 15th, Western Reserve Lace Group meets from 10 to 1, and from 11 to 4 on the same day, we're doing needle felted rabbits, the 3-dimensional ones that are here in the store. Everybody goes, when are you going to do this? We're going to do it.
There you go.
Yep. Beginners Tapestry, October 19th from 5 to 8. On the 21st, an advanced macrame, and we said we're going to do the owl again, correct?
Yes. And can I interject here?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we were going to do for that day, we were going to do a macrame bag, which I will do, but I'm going to do that in the spring. One thing I found out when we did the owl class, and this is absolutely meant as no offense to anybody that took that class. I'm going to put it on me as the instructor. When everybody was taking their basic knots class or their intro or the beginners macrame class, I think maybe I wasn't clear enough in how much you need to practice those knots.
Yep.
When I say practice, I mean like use your practice cords and do your square knot until you can do it from memory and you don't even have to think about it. Do that double half hitch, also known as the clove hitch, until you don't have to think about it. And you need to learn to work it from the left and you need to learn to work it from the right. Because if you know those 2 stitches, knots, sorry, I keep calling them stitches. If you know those 2 knots so well you don't have to think about that, we'll actually be able to finish the owl. We didn't even get a third of the way through the owls in our first class.
Right.
And my bad, because maybe I didn't stress how important it is to know your knots. Because when we get into that advanced class like that, I'm not teaching you new knots. I'm teaching you how to put those knots together and how to learn to follow patterns and how to pick up cording from weird places.
And how to create a specific thing.
Right. So it's more me guiding you and helping you understand how to read that pattern than it is learning a new knot.
Right. So what I did after I did the beginner's macrame was I took all my cords, my practice cords, and I undid all the knots. I started over and I kind of created my own mini wall hanging, just playing with those knots and seeing different things that I could create with that. And it gave me that practice, but it also made me stop and think about where they go, how they're going to look in certain patterns.
Yep.
Are they stacked on top of each other? Are they alternating? Where do I want to put in that double half hitch? Do I want to put in a double half hitch?
Right.
You know, things like that. So I did that on my own just to kind of practice because I wanted to make sure I knew it.
And this is the thing, like if you're not practicing that, you know, the 2 main knots, which are the square knot and the double half hitch, you're going to get behind when we do things like the owl. And then it ends up like we end up holding up the whole class so that we can catch everybody up. Or I'm bouncing like a ping pong ball from person to person trying to get each person to the point in the pattern, you know, and it ends up harder. And I want everybody to be successful. So practice those knots. But also if you don't practice those knots and you took that basic class so that you could take macro weaving on November 5th, you better practice those knots.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time to teach
She
those
doesn't.
knots
But
on
I
that
will
day.
tell you right now, the papers that you received at that beginner's macrame workshop, I refer to those all the time. They're very detailed pictures and written instructions. So if you forget, just go read it. It'll come right back to you. Or stop in, even if she's not here. I can help you with it because
she knows
I'm
the basics.
doing them.
Knots, you are.
Yeah.
You got the bowl going on. She's making her own Christmas tree thing.
I'm making ornaments that go on the tree. Teeny tiny little things that she won't work with because it's too small.
I can't work with.
And I'm finding the bigger stuff hurts my hands, the smaller stuff doesn't.
How
which
weird
is the opposite
that?
of you.
Who'da thunk?
It hurt. Yeah,
Who'da
it hurt.
Thunk?
Yeah.
I lose my glasses.
All right, so let's keep
Sorry,
going here.
Didn't mean to sidetrack, but
we got a few more things here.
Important note.
Beginners hooking with yarn on October 26th from 5 to 8. Basic knots from Macro Weave from 12 to 2 on the 27th. And then again, a second session of Beginners Macrame from 4 to 8 that same evening on the 27th. And then on October 29th, Saturday from 9 to 5, we're going to do another one-day weave-in like we did in the spring. And guess what, people? What's macrame? It's weaving.
Yes, you can bring your macrame, and I'll be here that whole day. I took the day off of work. Well, I'll be honest, I might have one client very dirt early in the morning.
Right. So the things that you need in order to take the macro weave, we're going to touch on this real quick.
Yeah.
For November 5th, because that's when we're going to hold the beginners macro weaving workshop, is you need Beginners Tapestry.
Yep.
That is coming up on the 19th of October.
Perfect.
You need Rigid Heddle Basics. If you missed October 1st, guess what? Call me. We can fit it in somewhere.
Yeah.
You need either basic knots for macro weave or the Beginners Macrame workshop.
Yes.
Those are all scheduled in October.
Yes.
So that you can have all those fundamentals under your belt. And then all you have to do is go, I'm ready for November 5th. Yeah. And we'll get you going.
And if you listen to me, if you take the basic knots class or the intro to macrame, I can't tongue-tied today. They're at the end of the month.
Yep.
That doesn't give a lot of time for you to practice knots, but boy, you better commit to practicing those knots because you'll fall behind in the macroweave class.
Yeah, you have about a week and a half.
Yeah. You just need to be really familiar. The square and the double half hitch. I'm going to tell you those are the two that you really need to know.
And I'm going to tell you, like I tell everybody else, when you're learning something new, you need to practice it at least 15 minutes a day. So leave it out where you can see it and walk by and just go, all right, let's do some square knots. Let's get across that row. Let's work back the other way. Okay, my 15 minutes are up. The next day, do the double half hitch all the way across. Yep. It takes a little bit longer to do it just because of what it is. And then work it back the other way. Okay, I'm done. Next day, a little bit of both.
Yep.
Mix them up. But you have to practice. It's like with anything else. Your hands have to learn that.
It's like that muscle memory.
Yes, muscle memory.
Like how to move the knots.
Yep, you got to learn it.
You know.
Okay.
Oh God, what was I going to say? I hate when it goes right out of my head like that.
You'll remember it later.
I will. Middle of the video. There's going to be a comment about that. Just so you know.
I remembered.
Yes. All right. I'm putting on my little old lady glasses.
Yes, because we're going to start answering some of the most asked questions that we come across here in the store. That she gets asked, I get asked. People just in general comment, go, how do you know how to do this kind of thing? So what are you going to start with?
We're going to start with knitting. So this is going to fall into your purview because because it is.
Because it's me.
I'm the slow knitter of the bunch. So a lot of people, and I hear this a lot even when I'm in the store, they're asking like, what can I make out of one skein of yarn?
Right. So it depends, first of all, on what's the yarn you're talking about. If you're talking about sock yarn, well, make a pair of socks. Or you can do there's a sock hat pattern out there where you're using sock yarn hat.
Oh.
You can make a small shawl because there's usually about 430 yards on a skein of sock weight yarn, and you can make a small shawl. So there's that. If you're talking worsted weight yarn, make a hat. You can make fingerless gloves. You can make a pair of mittens. There's a lot you can do with one skein of yarn, depending on the yarn. Now, jewel spun, there's 546 yards on there. You can make a whole lot with that one skein of yarn because of the yardage.
Absolutely.
So it just depends on the yarn.
Okay.
But you can do something very easy, or you can do something a little more complicated. But there's a lot of one skein patterns out there. And if you really want to get some inspiration, over on the bookcase that has all the donated books, there's a lot of one skein books over there.
Are there?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yep. So there's that too.
I just try to be creative and go, you know what? I'm going to put it in my weaving.
Yep.
Needle size,
right? All right.
Well, yeah, it depends on your needle size too.
Yes. Okay. So another thing I get is when people are knitting, they want to know how come their edges are uneven.
In knitting?
Yeah.
Well, typically at the beginning of a row, if you're knitting and it just says, say you're doing garter stitch, or no, it's stockinette's better. So you're going to knit a row, purl a row. That first stitch, because it is actually the same yarn from the last stitch of the previous row, you get this big loop. Some people actually slip that first stitch instead of actually knitting or purling it, and when you slip it, then it kind of pulls it up. It makes it so it's a tighter
But does it
stitch.
change the pattern?
It does not change the pattern.
I think she lies.
It doesn't change the pattern. And a lot of people,
That's so
even
weird.
though some patterns will actually tell you to slip the first stitch and then move on, and it's for
Okay.
that purpose, because at the end of the row, you're going to knit that stitch from the previous row that you slipped because it was the first stitch. So it's going to put it right back into the pattern, and it's not going to change that edge at any point. What it's going to do is it's going to tighten up that yarn so you don't get that big loop. And then you're not over tightening that first stitch, which sometimes happens. So there's that. That is what can happen at the beginning of your row. So they look a little wonky. But a lot of people, I have seen them, they start a pattern and they're doing that slip the first stitch instead of what the pattern says. And they're like, I always slip the first stitch. It's how they...
Would it be Cheryl? Does Cheryl slip the
No.
first stitch?
It was somebody else, but it's how...
Just always curious.
It's how they were taught. And that was the
okay.
reason why they were taught that, is because it tightens up that edge and it makes it look neater. It's not loopy.
Mine are probably loopy.
So there's that.
Because I'm a medium knitter. I'm not a tight knitter and I'm not a loose knitter
Right.
anymore, but I'm like this weird medium. And when I get to the ends and my hands hurt,
It's loose.
it's probably loose.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, that's a good answer.
Yeah. So, and remember that thing I said about practicing 15 minutes a day?
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're learning anything, people. It goes across the board for every technique that you're learning. If you're a beginner, this is one thing I tell you when you walk out: practice every day. Because if you come back in and you haven't practiced, we're starting all over.
I did that when you taught me knitting,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably more than 15 minutes because I was addicted.
In the beginning,
I
yeah.
needed to know, I
Mhm.
needed to know, because I didn't want to look stupid every time I picked something up.
Right, and the other thing too is why I tell you that is because I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Yeah,
You can pull these muscles.
yeah. Okay, so the last question pertaining to knitting is charts.
Yep.
People want to know why
Mm-hmm.
are there charts, and do they have to use them?
So, twofold question. Charts just make it easier to see the pattern that you're creating, because typically charts are for lace knitting. Typically.
Okay.
So you've got your yarn overs, your knit two togethers, SSKs, you have all of that stuff in there. And a lot of times it's easier to read it or to see the pattern taking shape, because a yarn over is a circle, and then you have lines, hash marks, either left side or right side for your knit two together and your SSKs, and you can kind of see that you're getting this kind of a pattern that's happening like this. So you're going to be making a triangle if your pattern looks like this. I worked with one of my customers. She wanted to learn how to do knitted lace and to read a chart at the same time. And the pattern that she picked happened to be in Creative Knitting magazine. There was no written instructions. they got you started, and then everything was a chart, and it was
Lord help me,
3 sections of different lace patterns across and it was a 16-row repeat. So very important to follow your row, know which row you're on. Plus we were knitting back and forth instead of in the round, which is different when you're reading a chart.
You know that colored tape you have?
We used the magnetic board and moved our thingy up.
I like that tape. So, that's where I'd be using that tape.
Some patterns, and this is how I learned how to read a chart. Some patterns have row by row written instructions, and they also have the chart. So if you read it here, look at it here, try to decipher what they're saying, and that's how I learned how to read a chart. You also have a key that tells you what each of the symbols mean.
This is going to be a good one.
What?
So, what you said at the beginning of that, that charts are more used for like lace, like lace knitting. Does that mean since I don't create lace work patterns, I don't have to put a chart on any more of my patterns I design?
No. Because you specifically put in, she's talking about the Ricky the Sheep Hat, because she specifically designed a pattern, which was a face that was knit in pearls, and it made it easier to see it.
We did a chart for the halogen too.
I didn't. You did.
Because somebody said I had to have a chart. I hate charts, just so you know. Like, I hate making them. I hate reading them. They make my ADHD brain go absolutely berserk.
So what I'm going to tell you is you're helping those people who would rather look at a chart instead of read line by line.
I get it. Yeah. No, I do. It's so like when I'm teaching, I like to make sure that all the words that come out of my mouth are also in written format for people that can't hear every word, because I'm one of those people that skip every other word you say. I need it. I'm going to see it, hear it, do it. So I try to teach that way. I hate making charts.
Well, they help some people. And just be thankful you're not creating crochet patterns that require that kind of a chart.
Listen, totally the crochet pattern that we just did for the yarn tour, and that chart,
not happening.
That's gonna be the last one you get.
Well, you didn't do a chart for that one, but that's okay.
There's no chart in there?
No.
Oh, I didn't. Yes. No.
It would have taken you 10 years to complete it if you were going to do it.
I don't get the chart thing for crochet. It's different. It's different. I looked. It's different.
It is different because it's symbols instead of dots and dashes. Yep. It's okay. We got this.
Yeah, she's got this.
Okay.
All right. So crochet.
Do we want to start with his question first?
Oh my Lord. Go ahead.
Mr. Bob,
ask your silly question.
It's not silly.
What can I make with a simple chain stitch?
So if all you're going to do is create just a chain.
I'm going to make a snake.
You can make a snake, or you create those chains and then you applique it onto your work to create letters or designs, words, things like that.
Oh, she's so smart.
People do that all the time. You can also...
I wait. Somebody chain stitch me so I can do an L
for
Laverne. I need to be Laverne for... That's who I could be for Halloween this year.
Focus.
Yes.
Focus.
I don't have focus. All right. No, that was a good one. Bob posed that to us at breakfast, and it just made me giggle.
You can also take that chain stitch, however long you've got it, and you can just wind it around itself and create a flower just by stitching those rounds of chain stitch together.
Okay.
There's easy things you can do with it.
Perfect.
Because he knows how to do that by the mile. He just doesn't know how to do anything
my grandma,
else.
That's the very first thing I did, and I was chaining for days, and I swear to God, it must have been 2 years before she taught me to do anything with the chain stitch. It probably wasn't, but it sure felt like that's all I did for the longest time. Okay, in crochet, people want to know, how come they can't get their tension right when they're crocheting?
Crochet,
very different from knitting tension.
It's very different because you have to be very aware of how much you're pulling on your yarn for the loop, for the size you're going to need. You know, when you're doing the base chain before you actually start, they say chain loosely, which gives you the freedom to make any size you want. Well, it can be like this, it can be like this, it can be like that. They all still count as one, so you have to be consistent. In knitting, the yarn and needle determine the size of your stitches. In crochet, it is you. It's how much you pull up on that loop, and some patterns actually tell you to make a long loop so that you can do other things in that specific pattern. Mm-hmm. Tension with crochet, I'm just going to tell you, it's practice.
Yeah.
It is just practice over and over and over again, and you will get to a point where it just works for you. Mm-hmm. You get that rhythm between the yarn and the crochet hook. Yep. Start with a chain and just do rows of single crochet until your single crochets are all the same size. Switch to half doubles. Do the same thing.
The thing that I like about crochet, though, with that whole tension thing, is once you finally get the hang of the tension, you could not crochet for an entire year and come back to it.
And yeah.
And it just...
That is definitely a
like, it's
muscle
just
memory
one
thing.
of those things. Like, I mean, because of my hands, I put crochet down for a really, really long, like 2-3 years. And then all of a sudden I wanted to start doing these ponchos with crocheted edges. So I kind of picked it back up. It's like I never, I mean, of course I've been crocheting for 30 years.
But you're also, because of what you're doing, you're using large yarn too. So even if your tension's off a little bit, you're not going to notice it.
Because I got the bigger art yarns.
Correct.
Okay.
Whereas we have a customer who crochets so tight that when I did a project and she did a project and we used the same yarn, same needles, hers was 3/4 my size. Because Rhonda just crochets tight.
She's amazing.
She does wonderful stuff. She's just a tight crocheter.
When she took my macrame, my intro to the beginner's macrame, your normal project, like for normal tension for macrame, is about this wide.
Yep.
Okay? Hers was about this wide. It was not like, I'm like, Rhonda, you're not trying to save somebody off the edge of a boat. You don't have to tie it like it's a lifeline. She's all laughing. She does she's beautiful. And she was in my OWL class, and I was stressed at the beginning of the class, like, okay, Rhonda, listen. Not tight. Firm. Firm is good. I said, or your owl is going to be this big and you'll never make it to the edge of the ring. And she's like, gotcha. It was great. It was great.
Yep.
The other okay. So people want to understand, like, crochet typically, like, is a right-handed project. Can you crochet left-handed?
Absolutely.
Does it change the way a stitch falls in a pattern, or will it make something look differently?
It's just reverse of a right-handed crocheter, unlike knitting where you have to really pay attention.
Okay.
I know how to crochet left-handed because I had to teach somebody left-handed, and I went, I'll just do it left side, and I can do it as well. When you're following a pattern, as long as it's something that doesn't have a whole lot of like sweater shaping because you have a right side, wrong side.
Okay.
Then you might have to flip your increases and decreases to accommodate that. But other than that, most other patterns, especially if you're making small animals like the amigurumi stuff, it's not going to make a difference. It's all going to be the same.
Okay.
You can tell. I can pick up a piece and look at it from the right side of the work, which is the facing side, and know if a left-handed person crocheted it.
I would never be able to figure that out.
It's really easy, but yeah.
Well, I've never compared the works, and I'm so right-handed. It's, you know how they say some people can do a little left and a little right?
Yeah.
The only thing that I can do besides my macrame, like that takes two hands, things like that, hair. Like, I can blow dry from the right, I can blow dry from the left. Put the scissors in my left hand, you should get out of my chair real fast.
Yep.
I am not left-handed.
So let's ask that question regarding knitting.
Okay.
So knitting, yes, there is left-handed knitting, But if you want to be able to follow a pattern and not drive yourself flipping crazy by switching everything around, it takes two hands to knit. So when a left-handed knitter, someone comes in who's left-handed and they want to learn how to knit, I go, perfect. We use two hands anyway. So you're going to learn how to knit the way patterns are written.
I think that's awesome.
It makes it easier.
So when you say that, it reminds me of my struggles of converting some of those European patterns in crochet to the way we understand. I'm like, but no, 2 is 2. A double is a double. A triple is a triple. And it's not. It's not.
Not in their world.
Not in their world. So, and I still have a couple of those, and it has my pen marks through every single stitch, so I remember what to do.
That's why if you can read the chart, those symbols are the same.
I knew she was going to bring the chart back up.
All right. Is that all the crochet questions?
That is.
Now
actually, I'm going to handle the next question or two because it was about dyeing.
Okay.
People want to know what the difference between like the acid dyes and like the Procyon MX, because I've taught a couple of classes now where we've used both.
Right.
And so your acid dyes differ as they're the most widely used dyes in the fiber world. And there are a slew of brands. My top 3 are the Jacquard, the Procam, and the Dharma. They have the best colors. I mostly use Jacquard because local access.
Yeah.
You know, really, let's
Plus
be real. It does. No, they're beautiful colors. But so your acid dyes work with literally an acid. You have to have an acid to make those dyes penetrate and stick to the fibers. And protein fibers. Let's get that clear. There we go. They're more protein fibers. Your wools, more wools. My brain just stopped working.
So it's your natural fibers.
There we go. Natural fibers. I couldn't come up with the word natural. I'm struggling with words today. It's been a long week. Now your Procyon MX, that doesn't require an acid. Acid dyes require heat of some sort, be it sunlight, be it a stove, an oven, a steamer. They require a heat. Procyon MX is for all your cellulose fibers. And we just, wow.
Had a power surge.
All right. Hey, guess what?
Oh,
we may be filming in the dark. That's okay. We'll make Bob turn on his flashlight.
What the heck? We might have to do this again.
No.
Well, we're at 28 minutes.
We're not redoing this. They can have a couple flashes.
Okay.
All right. Your other fibers are... I'm posting it anyway. I don't care. Y'all can laugh. I'm going to do this quick in case we have to wrap it up. Procyon MX, it's for cellulose fibers. Right. Okay? Plant-based fibers. Your silk, your cotton, things like that. It does not require heat. It requires soda ash.
Yep.
All right? You have to soak your stuff in soda ash to get that fiber to open up and take the dye. So that's the main difference with that. And then the other dye question I got, where was it? People want to know if acid dyes are toxic. Quit making faces at me. Acid dyes are not toxic when they're in liquid form. When they're in powder form, they are little tiny dust particles. So, and it's when you're mixing them, you need a mask on to protect yourself.
You don't want it breathe that in. You don't want it in your lungs. You don't want it in your nostrils.
So I'm going to kill cameraman Bob today. He keeps making faces over there, and I don't know what's going on.
So basically, when you're mixing your dyes, your acid dyes, they're in a powder form.
Yeah.
And put that mask on before you open up that jar. Do all your measuring. Get it all mixed into the water. Once you get everybody mixed and you're done working with those dyes, put the lid back on. Take your mask off. You're good to go.
Yeah. And, you know, there was a couple of people that took my classes over the summer that were very, very concerned about that because they had been kind of scared away from acid dyeing because they're like, well, I know it's dangerous. I'm like,
it's not the acid because we use vinegar.
No more dangerous, I don't know, than anything once it's in liquid form.
Right.
You just have to be careful for the 5 minutes it takes you to mix stuff. And as long as that mask is covering your nose and face and you're not literally hovering over it going, you're going to be fine. Trust me, lungs are still clear and I don't know why. Cameraman Bob's trying to ask a question. He's making me crazy because I thought he was making faces at me. Yeah. Yes, Robert.
Can you dye acrylics?
Oh, Lord. You can. You can. Acid dyes will not. They'll stain an acrylic yarn, but they will not
vibrant colors.
Dye an acrylic yarn. Procyon MX? Yes and no. It'll almost, so that yarn that I have that is my acid line, that's 50% tencel, 50% wool. So it takes up color from the acid, from the acid dyes, but it doesn't fully penetrate because that tencel is a plant-based fiber. It's a synthetic fiber. So it's stopping the yarn from taking up part of the dye. So that whole line, it's very hard to get deep, darker, truer, rich colors.
So they're a little muted.
Yeah, Procyon MX will kind of work like that on an acrylic yarn. It depends on how the acrylic was coated because not all acrylic yarns are created equally. I know that sounds weird. Yeah. Some are more porous than others. And there are other lines of dye out there that you can use for acrylics. I just don't use them. It's in my world of being an indie dyer, using an acrylic yarn is like sacrilege. Like, yeah. Why? Although I have a superwash yarn that feels way better and it'll wash and dry just like the acrylic and I get prettier colors. So there is that. So any other questions, Bob? All right. We're going to move on. The next questions I have are having to do with our weaving stuff.
Okay.
What's the purpose of the heddle?
Oh. The heddle, now if we're talking rigid heddle looms, the heddle holds the reed, the heddle, interchangeable terms for rigid heddle weaving. It also has the reed are the slots, the heddle is the eyes. And though you need both of those things to create your sheds, because one basically is a stationary thing. The eye is not going anywhere. It's in the middle. The slot goes the full up and down.
Yep.
And when you move up, the eyes go up, the slots go down. And when you go down, the eyes go down and the slots go up. And that's your two different sheds. That's what you're creating. Okay. And if you're doing a floor loom or a tabletop multi-shaft loom, your heddles and your reed are separate things.
Okay.
So there's that.
All right. What kind of things can you make on a rigid heddle?
Anything you want. You can do, I start with a scarf just because it's flat, it's easy, and that's the thing that you can do.
And when you're learning, they can turn into a rug.
And they can, because it depends on how hard you beat. That's the things that we teach you in those beginners, the basic rigid heddle workshop. That's what you learn. If you want to purposely make a rug, well, I'll show you how to do it. Here, pick that back up.
Oh, she's taking my coffee thing. That's about the hardness of my first scarf.
Yes. So this here is a coaster. They call it a mug rug, whatever. These black pieces, that's my actual warp. You cannot see the warp in here because I purposely beat it to the point where you can't see that, because I needed this to be a very firm piece of fabric to take the spills and stuff if anybody has a wet cup or a glass or whatever. There's that. It insulates it.
That must have been what I was thinking when I made my scarf.
Of course.
I wanted it to insulate my neck.
I have had people who purchased the larger looms, the 32 and the 48 inch wide, to actually create fabric that they can actually cut into a pattern and make jackets and yeah.
I've been weaving for 6 years, okay? And I want to do this so bad because one of our clients at the salon, she's Kelly's client, she has this vintage plaid knee-length coat, okay? And it is creams and pinks with a little bit of tannish, brownish color in it. And it's got like this tiny little black line, and it's got this big collar, and it is gorgeous. I am terrified to weave something that I cut. Like, and I can sew. I sew pretty darn good. Not as well as Kathy or Ingrid. Let's be real, because I can't do zippers. Or buttonholes, probably. So, but that terrifies me.
Yeah. So that's what
All
so
that work. And it
so
just
you
goes
can
like
do
this.
that. You can make blankets. You can make ponchos. You can create pieces and sew them together to make whatever you want. Sky's the limit. People,
Okay.
you're making a fabric. You can make a smaller triangle, pull it around, sew up the back, have yourself a hat with that.
Okay.
You know,
And
you can do that.
I have 2 last questions.
Okay.
How do I pick the best rigid heddle for me? Like, how does somebody pick the loom that's going to work for them? Like, what determines
the
that?
width?
I guess. Yeah.
So rigid heddle looms across the board, no matter who the manufacturer is, they pretty much do the same thing, no matter what. So if price point's an issue, then you're going to be looking at cost. If you want something that's going to last and is easy to use, you need to come take a lesson from me so you can see how Ashford is, and then see if a friend has a Cricut, which is a shack product, and go and try that and see the differences. There are differences definitely between them.
Lex has a shack that somebody gave her.
The Cricut one,
It's a
Okay.
20, 28,
It's the flip.
26.
yeah,
It's weird.
they're weird. They're
It's
a little different.
weird. Like,
The whole setup is a little different. You actually have to watch how you warp it, because if you don't go up and over that beam, you have no shed. So
yeah,
it's different.
yeah.
Because I've had to teach people how to use their Cricut, and I'm like, please, do you have your instruction book? Because
She hasn't
I forget
used it
that
yet.
one step.
She hasn't used it yet because we can't.
Can't figure it out.
Yeah. We'll come visit you for that one.
But as far as a width to determine the size of the loom that you want, this is what I tell everybody: what's the widest thing you're going to make, and get that at least. You can always go smaller.
A 96-inch loom so I can have a blanket for my bed.
And then get a 48 and learn how to do double heddle weaving.
Just mess.
Yeah, I know. Or make two 48-inch wide pieces and sew them together. It's easier.
So
At that point, when you got that wide.
I love it.
But yeah, I always tell everybody, what's the widest thing you're going to make? What is that piece you're going to want to make? And then that's where you need to start. Don't be, I got to have one, give me the 10-inch, like this one did.
No, because then 30 days later you're buying a 28.
Yeah, because you really wanted something bigger.
I really wish they made that knitter's loom in like a 48. I want it bigger. Because then I would make my fabric.
We'll have a discussion later.
I know, we're always going to have a discussion. I should just make her make me fabric on her
But this is
other loom.
But that's how you do that. You just, what's the widest thing? And most people would tell you, I don't know. Okay, fine. Here, hold on one second. Now I have reeds 28, 24, 20, 16, and 10. And I will lay them out to show the different widths, and they go, oh, well, that one's too big, that one's too small. I go, okay, so
this is what's
so
left.
pick. And it's either a 20 or a 24 are the most popular widths, because like I say, you can always go smaller. It's just you cannot go bigger than whatever the reed is.
Yeah.
So unless you're doing double heddle, and then you can do double your width.
Yeah, and that takes some practice, folks.
It takes time.
So the last question I'm actually going to do, it's from our friend Sue.
Sue asked a question.
Yeah, Sue asked us a question in text the other day.
Okay.
And she wanted to know, how come we don't film from my studio? And I thought it was very funny because at the time I was so busy, like there was so much going on.
Right.
I didn't answer the question. Jeannine was so busy here with the yarn tour, she didn't answer the question. And so we were talking about it today at breakfast before we came up. And we don't film from my studio because, hey, have you met me?
I want no stress on her.
I have chaos. Like my studio, there is almost always a project going on. Right now, my studio is covered in cording. I have more macrame cording on 3 different tables and scraps on one, and my Wreath rack with all of my things is sitting in the middle of the floor, and I would have to clean all of that up for us to come film because I was in the middle of a project.
Yep.
Probably we will do one from there because I have an idea for a future show, maybe for one of our January episodes. But rest assured, there'll still be chaos there. We'll be filming around the chaos. It's a creative space. And a lot of times, I know I can't help it, I talk with my hands. A lot of times when we're filming, like we need a sample. Like we're talking about something that's here in the store and it might not be in front of us. Well, cameraman Bob can get up, go get the sample and come back because we do so much stuff jointly. Even though we're 2 separate companies, we collaborate on probably 95% of the things that we do.
Yep.
So it just makes more sense for us to be here. So you'll get to see the studio in January. How's that, guys?
Oh, and also, it's amazing that cameraman Bob knows what's in the store and where it's at and can walk right to it and get it.
Oh, he sure can. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but
it's
he
more
sure
than he
can.
wants to know.
It's more than I want to know.
Well, that's really all we have for today. Please like our page on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with your friends, convince your friends to follow us. Guys, we broke our numbers. I want to thank all of you so very much. Don't forget, if you didn't see it, there's a video before this on October 1st. I put up a video. Yes, I was out of town when I did it, but I put up a video that announced our winner for our raffle basket.
Have we even seen the basket?
Yeah, I showed it in the other video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Oh,
put it
that's
out
right.
here.
It was in the box. Sorry.
Oh my God. It's been a day.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But so we actually, by the time our video went up, we had 124 subscribers.
Oh, we're more
so
than
we
that
beat
now.
our 100. So I don't know. I guess upwards and onwards, and let's shoot for 150.
You guys are just very supportive, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions about anything that we shared today, or if today's video made you think of a question about knitting or weaving or macrame or spinning, because we didn't even cover any of the questions from spinning. We'll do that at another coffee and chat later on in the year. Don't hesitate to comment below. You are always welcome to ask questions, and we'll either answer them there or we'll answer them in the next coffee and chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You
It's a
guys
lot
have
of
a
fun.
beautiful day. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.